He was 6'8" of pure intimidation, a mountain of muscle wrapped in Italian suits, the mafia boss everyone feared, Lorenzo the Giant Moretti. They said no woman could handle him, not his size, not his temper, not his world. 17 women had tried to marry him. 17 women had run screaming. Then Zara Williams walked into his office, 5'4" of Brooklyn attitude and zero fear, the event planner hired to organize his sister's wedding. She looked up at him and said, "I've seen bigger." He knew right then she was either the bravest woman alive or the most foolish. Turned out she was both, and she was about to become his obsession. Comment the Giant if you're ready for this size difference romance. Lorenzo Moretti had a problem. His sister, Julia, was getting married in 6 weeks. The wedding planner they'd hired had quit 3 days ago, the third one to quit in 2 months. Something about the Moretti family being impossible to work with. Lorenzo knew the real reason. People were terrified of him. At 6'8" and 280 pounds of muscle, he wasn't built like normal men. He was built like a fortress. Wide shoulders that barely fit through doorways, hands that could palm a basketball like it was a tennis ball, a presence that made rooms feel smaller. Add in the fact that he was the head of the Moretti crime family, one of New York's most powerful mafia organizations, and most people couldn't handle being in the same room with him. Especially women. Lorenzo had tried to marry 17 times over the past 5 years. His family wanted an heir. Tradition demanded it. He'd gone through the motions, dates, proposals, engagements. Every single woman had eventually run. Some made it to the engagement party before bolting. One made it all the way to the dress fitting before having a panic attack and calling it off. Most didn't last more than a few dates. The reasons varied, but they all came down to the same thing. Lorenzo was too much. Too big, too intimidating, too dangerous, too everything. He'd accepted it, resigned himself to a life alone, focused on business instead. But his sister deserved a perfect wedding, which meant he needed a wedding planner who wouldn't run screaming. Mr. Moretti, his assistant Marco, appeared in the doorway of his office. "The new wedding planner is here, Zara Williams from Elegance Events." Lorenzo didn't look up from the contract he was reviewing. "Send her in." He heard the footsteps, quick, confident, and then a voice that made him pause. Wow, they weren't kidding about the whole villain's lair aesthetic you've got going here. Lorenzo's head snapped up. Standing in his doorway was a black woman who barely came up to his assistant's shoulder, maybe 5'4" in the heels she wore, natural hair in a high puff, brown skin that seemed to glow in the sunlight from his windows, curves that her professional dress tried and failed to hide. And she was smiling. Not the nervous, placating smile most people gave him. A real smile. Amused. Fearless. "Excuse me?" Lorenzo said, his voice coming out rougher than intended. "The office." She walked in without invitation, gesturing around. "Very powerful man who makes problems disappear. I respect the commitment to the aesthetic." Marco looked horrified. "Miss Williams, I apologize." "It's fine, Marco," Lorenzo said, standing. He saw her eyes widen slightly as he rose to his full height. Most people had that reaction. He was used to it. But Zara Williams didn't step back, didn't flinch, just tilted her head back to maintain eye contact and said, "I've seen bigger." Lorenzo blinked. "What? You're what, 6'8", 6'9"? I had a professor in college who was 7'2". So technically, I've seen bigger." Was she messing with him? "Miss Williams." "Call me Zara. Miss Williams makes me sound like a librarian." She moved to one of the chairs facing his desk and sat without asking. "So, your sister's wedding, 6 weeks out, 3 previous planners quit. You need someone who can handle your unique situation." She made air quotes around the last two words. Lorenzo sat back down slowly. Your unique situation? You're a mafia boss with the personality of a brick wall and the approximate size of a small building. Most people find you terrifying. I'm guessing the previous planners couldn't handle the pressure of working for the Moretti family. She said it so matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. And you can handle it? Lorenzo asked. Mr. Moretti, I've planned weddings for bridezillas who make Gordon Ramsay look zen. I've dealt with in-laws who tried to fist fight at the ceremony. Once I had a groom's ex show up with a shotgun. She leaned forward. I can handle anything you throw at me. The question is, can you handle me? Lorenzo stared at her. No one spoke to him like this. No one. It should have annoyed him, should have made him want to intimidate her to submission. Instead, he found himself intrigued. What makes you think you're different from the others? He asked. Because I don't scare easy, and because I actually give a damn about making your sister's day perfect, not about managing your ego. She pulled out a tablet. Now, can we talk about the actual wedding, or do you want to stare at me like I'm an alien for another 5 minutes? The corner of Lorenzo's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Let's talk about the wedding. Over the next hour, Zara walked Lorenzo through her vision for Julia's wedding. She was efficient, professional, creative. She'd already reviewed all the previous plans and identified what was working and what wasn't. Your sister wants elegance but not stuffy, Zara explained, showing him photos. She wants her personality to shine through. The previous planners were trying to make this some kind of mafia royalty coronation. That's not what she wants. How do you know what she wants? Lorenzo challenged. Because I called her yesterday and had a 2-hour conversation about her vision, her fears, and what would make her happy. Zara looked at him pointedly. When was the last time you asked her what she wanted instead of telling her what she should have? Lorenzo's jaw clenched. I'm trying to give her the best. The best according to who? You or her? Direct, challenging, no fear. Lorenzo wasn't used to this. I'll need to meet with Julia regularly, Zara continued, without you hovering. Brides need space to make decisions without their overprotective brothers intimidating everyone. I don't intimidate. Zara raised an eyebrow. Lorenzo closed his mouth. Fine, he intimidated people. That was a fair assessment. I'll also need access to your vendors, your venues, and your budget. She was typing notes. And I'll need you to not murder anyone who disagrees with you about flower arrangements. I've never murdered anyone over flowers. Yet, she smiled sweetly, there's always a first time. Was she joking? Lorenzo couldn't tell, and that bothered him more than it should. One more thing, Zara said, standing. I don't do well with hovering, micromanaging, or men who think they know better than me about my job. I'm the expert here. You hired me because you need someone who knows what they're doing, so let me do my job without interference. Can you handle that? Lorenzo stood as well. The height difference was almost comical. The top of her head barely reached his chest. But she didn't seem intimidated, just looked up at him with those intelligent brown eyes, waiting for an answer. I can handle it, he said. Can you handle working for the Moretti family? This isn't just about planning a wedding. You'll be in our world, around our business. You'll see things, hear things. That doesn't bother you? Mr. Moretti, I grew up in Brooklyn. I know exactly who the Moretti family is. I also know that your money spends the same as anyone else's, and your sister deserves a beautiful wedding. What you do in your business life is your business. I'm here for the wedding, nothing else. Smart, aware, setting boundaries. Lorenzo respected that. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand. Zara looked at his hand, easily twice the size of hers, and took it without hesitation. Her hand disappeared in his grip. Warm, soft. He was careful not to squeeze too hard. Deal, she said. I'll be back tomorrow to meet with Julia. Try not to terrorize any more wedding planners before then. She left his office with the same confident stride she'd entered with. Lorenzo sat back down, staring at the door. Marco appeared. "Sir, are you smiling?" Lorenzo touched his face. He was, just barely. "She's interesting," he said. "She's insane," Marco corrected. "No one talks to you like that." "I know." Lorenzo's smile widened. "That's what makes her interesting." She said, "I've seen bigger to the most dangerous man in New York." Zara Williams just walked into the giant's office with zero fear and maximum attitude. She roasted his decor, called him a brick wall, set boundaries like a boss. 17 women ran from Lorenzo Moretti. Zara made him smile. What do you think happens next? Comment your prediction. Like if you love a fearless heroine. Share if you're hooked on this size difference. Subscribe. This is just the beginning. Part 2. The Sister. The next day, Zara arrives at the Moretti estate in the Hamptons. Estate was an understatement. It was a compound. High walls, security gates, guards. The main house was a mansion that looked like it belonged in a European countryside, not Long Island. Zara was escorted to a sunroom where a beautiful Italian woman in her mid-20s was waiting. "You must be Zara." Julia jumped up and hugged her. "Thank God. I was terrified no one would take this job after the others quit." "Your brother warned me about the unique situation," Zara said, smiling. Julia laughed. "He means himself. He's the unique situation. Lorenzo scares everyone." "He doesn't scare me." "I noticed. He mentioned you had an interesting meeting." I told him I'd seen bigger men and that his office looked like a villain's lair. Julia's eyes went wide. Then she burst out laughing. "Oh my God, what did he say?" "Not much. He mostly looked confused that someone wasn't terrified him." "I like you already." Julia grabbed Zara's hands. "Listen, I need you to understand something about my brother. He seems like this giant, terrifying mob boss, and he is, but he's also incredibly protective and kind of clueless about emotions. He's trying to give me this huge, elaborate wedding because he loves me, but what I actually want is something more intimate and personal." "Then that's what we'll do," Zara said firmly. "This is your day, not his, not your family's, yours." Julia's eyes filled with tears. The other planners kept asking Lorenzo what he wanted. "You're the first one who asked me." They spent 3 hours going through ideas. Julia wanted a garden ceremony, string lights, flowers that weren't too formal, a small band, not an orchestra, personal vows, a celebration that felt like love, not a mafia display of power. Zara took notes on everything, her mind already working through logistics. "There's one more thing," Julia said hesitantly. "My brother, he's going to hover. He can't help it. He's been taking care of me since our parents died when I was 15. He's overprotective on a good day and suffocating on a bad one. I can handle him." "I believe you can. But Zara, be careful. Lorenzo doesn't let people in. Ever. And when he does let someone in, even a little bit, he becomes intense, possessive, all-consuming. I'm just his sister's wedding planner." "For now." Julia smiled knowingly. "But I saw how he talked about you last night at dinner. He was interested. And when Lorenzo Moretti is interested in something, he doesn't let go until he has it." A chill ran down Zara's spine. Not fear, something else, something dangerous. "Good to know," she said lightly. "But I'm here for one reason, to give you the wedding of your dreams. Your brother's interest is his problem, not mine." Julia laughed. "Oh, I really like you." Over the next 2 weeks, Zara saw Lorenzo more than she'd expected. He showed up at vendor meetings, appeared at the venue, somehow materialized whenever Zara was meeting with Julia. "I'm just checking on things," he'd say. "You're hovering," Zara would respond. It became a pattern. Lorenzo would appear, Zara would call him out, they'd argue about some detail of the wedding, and somehow, through the arguments, things would get done. Zara was good at her job, excellent even. She had a vision and the skills to execute it. She also had zero tolerance for Lorenzo's attempts to control everything. "The flowers need to be white roses," Lorenzo declared at one meeting. "Your sister wants wildflowers. White roses are traditional. Your sister isn't traditional. She's quirky and sweet and wants something that feels like her. So we're doing wildflowers. Deal with it." Lorenzo's jaw clenched. "You're very stubborn," says the man who's argued with me for literally everything from table linens to parking arrangements. "I'm detail-oriented. You're a control freak. I prefer the term thorough. I prefer the term pain in my ass." Marco, standing nearby, looked like he might faint. No one spoke to Lorenzo this way. But Lorenzo just stared at Zara, and then, impossibly, he smiled. "Fine, wildflowers, but I'm picking the centerpiece style. Deal." It was exhausting, exhilarating. Zara had never met anyone who pushed back as hard as Lorenzo did, who challenged her decisions and made her defend her choices. But she also respected that he cared, that every argument came from a place of wanting the best for his sister. And she couldn't ignore the way he looked at her, like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve, like she was the most interesting thing in his world. It was dangerous. She knew it was dangerous. Lorenzo Moretti was not a man you played games with. He was not a man you teased or challenged unless you were prepared for consequences. But Zara had never been good at backing down. 3 weeks before the wedding, Zara was working late at the estate, finalizing seating charts in the library. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. He looked less like a mafia boss and more like a very large, very attractive man. "You're still here?" Lorenzo said. "Seating charts are a nightmare. Your family has more drama than a reality TV show." "Fair assessment." He moved into the room. "You've been working for us for 3 weeks. Not scared yet?" "Should I be?" Most people would be. Zara set down her pen and looked at him. "Mr. Moretti." "Lorenzo. We've been arguing for 3 weeks. You can call me Lorenzo." "Lorenzo," she corrected. "I'm not most people. I don't scare easily, and I definitely don't scare of you." "Why not?" "I'm twice your size. I'm dangerous. I've killed people. Why aren't you afraid?" "Because size doesn't equal danger, and because the man who brings his sister tea when she's stressed about wedding planning, who remembers that she doesn't like roses because they remind her of funerals, who threatens to break the florist's hands if they don't get the wildflowers perfect, that man isn't someone I need to be afraid of." Lorenzo stared at her. "You pay attention. It's my job." "No, your job is planning the wedding, but you pay attention to everything, to us, to me." He was standing very close now, close enough that Zara had to tilt her head all the way back to meet his eyes, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his massive frame. "Someone has to keep you from ruining your sister's wedding with your control issues," Zara said, but her voice came out breathier than intended. "Is that the only reason you pay attention to me?" Zara's heart was hammering. What other reason would there be? Lorenzo's hand came up, slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted, and cupped her face. His palm was enormous against her cheek, gentle, careful. "You're so small," he said softly. "I could break you without trying. But you won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're terrified of your own strength. Because you've been taught your whole life that you're too much, too big, too intense, too everything. So you hold back, all the time, with everyone." Lorenzo's thumb brushed her cheekbone. "Not with you. You don't let me hold back. Someone has to call you on your bullshit." He almost smiled. "No one else does. Then everyone else is a coward. Or smart. You realize what you're doing, challenging me, getting in my space, making me want—" He stopped abruptly. "Want what?" Zara whispered. Lorenzo's eyes were dark, intense. "Things I shouldn't want. Things that would be very bad ideas. I'm full of bad ideas." "Zara." His name was a warning and a plea. "Lorenzo." She reached up, had to stretch, and touched his chest, felt the rapid hammering of his heart beneath her palm. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not running. And I'm not going to pretend I don't feel this, whatever this is between us. You should run, he said roughly. I'm not good for you. I'm not good for anyone. Ask the 17 women who left. I'm not them. I know. That's the problem. You're nothing like them. You're brave and stubborn, and you look at me like I'm just a man, not a monster. And it makes me want things I gave up on wanting years ago. What things? Everything. Someone who stays. Someone who doesn't flinch when I touch them. Someone who... He stopped himself again. Zara made a decision. A reckless, dangerous, probably stupid decision. She rose up on her toes, even in heels she could barely reach, and pressed her lips to his. Lorenzo went absolutely still. For a terrifying second, Zara thought she'd made a terrible mistake. Then he made a sound, low, desperate, and kissed her back. And oh, Zara had kissed men before, but she'd never been kissed like this, like she was precious and necessary and the only thing in the world that mattered. Lorenzo's arms came around her, lifting her effortlessly off her feet so she didn't have to strain. He held her against him with the careful strength that made her feel both completely safe and entirely overwhelmed. The size difference should have been awkward, should have made this impossible. Instead, it made everything more intense. The way he had to bend down, the way she had to stretch up, the way his hands spanned her entire back, the way she felt utterly surrounded by him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo rested his forehead against hers. "This is a bad idea," he said. "Terrible idea," Zara agreed. "I'm your employer. Technically, your sister is my client. I'm dangerous. I'm not afraid of danger." "Zara," he pulled back enough to look at her. "I'm not good at this. Relationships, romance, being gentle. You're being gentle right now. Because you're tiny and I'm terrified of hurting you. Then we'll figure it out together." She touched his face. "Lorenzo, I know this is complicated. I know you've got a whole dark and dangerous thing going on. But I like you. And I think maybe you like me too." "I more than like you," he admitted. "That's what scares me." The giant who terrifies everyone just kissed the 5'4" wedding planner like she's the only thing in the world that matters. This man who made 17 women run is being gentle with the only woman who won't leave. But it's complicated, it's dangerous, it's a bad idea. Real talk, is this going to work? Comment what you think. Dating Lorenzo Moretti was nothing Zara expected. He was careful, almost painfully so, like he was constantly afraid he'd hurt her or scare her away. Their first official date was dinner at his penthouse. He cooked Italian food from his grandmother's recipes and was adorably nervous about whether she'd like it. "You're a mafia boss who commands an empire, but you're nervous about cooking for me?" Zara said, laughing. "Commanding an empire is easier than this," Lorenzo admitted. When he kissed her goodnight, he was so gentle it made her heart ache, like she was made of glass. "Lorenzo," she said after the third date, when he was being careful again, "you don't have to hold back so much. I'm twice your size. I could hurt you without meaning to. You won't. You don't know that. I do, because I trust you, and because you need to trust yourself." It was a process. Slowly, Lorenzo began to relax around her, to touch her without quite so much fear, to let himself be passionate instead of just gentle. But the size difference was real. Zara had to admit that. Simple things were complicated. Holding hands meant her entire hand disappeared in his. Hugging meant her face pressed against his chest. Kissing required either him bending down, or her on her toes, or him lifting her up. But somehow they made it work, found their rhythm, learned each other. The real complications came from everywhere else. Lorenzo's family was intense. His cousins, his associates, the people who worked for him. They all watched Zara with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "You're not Italian," Lorenzo's aunt said at a family dinner. "Nope," Zara agreed cheerfully. "Born and raised in Brooklyn, my people are from Georgia originally. And you're not intimidated by Lorenzo. Why would I be?" The aunt looked at Lorenzo, all 6'8" of him, and then back at Zara. "You most people are. I'm not most people." What she didn't say, Lorenzo's size wasn't what intimidated people. It was his reputation, his violence, the darkness he carried. But Zara had seen beneath that, had seen the man who brought his sister tea and worried about flower arrangements and kissed her like she was precious. Still, the whispers followed them. "She won't last, too different, he'll scare her away eventually." Zara ignored them, but Lorenzo heard every word. "Maybe they're right," he said one night after a particularly tense family gathering. "About what?" "That this won't work. That I'm too much for you." Zara turned to face him. They were in his study, the door closed for privacy. "Lorenzo Moretti, if you let other people's opinions dictate your life, you're not the man I thought you were. I don't want to hurt you. You won't. Not physically, but my world. It's violent, dangerous. You've been handling the wedding stuff, but that's the surface. The reality is darker, bloodier. I've done things, Zara. Things you don't know about. Things that would make you run if you did. Try me." So he told her. Not everything, some things were too dangerous to share, but enough. About the deals and the violence, the bodies and the blood, the reality of running a crime family. Zara listened without flinching. "Are you scared now?" Lorenzo asked when he finished. "No." "Why not?" "Because I already knew. Lorenzo, I'm not naive. I knew who you were when I took this job. I knew what your family does, and I chose to stay anyway." She took his hands. "I'm choosing you, all of you, the good and the dark, the gentle and the dangerous, all of it. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." He pulled her into his arms, carefully, always carefully, and held her. "I've never had someone choose me. Not really. They choose my money or my power or my name. But you chose me." "Damn right I did." "Lorenzo Moretti, I'm falling in love with you." Her heart stopped, then raced. "Lorenzo Moretti, I fell in love with you 3 weeks ago when you threatened to murder a florist over wildflowers for your sister." He laughed, a real, genuine laugh, and kissed her. And for a moment, the complications didn't matter. The size difference didn't matter. The darkness of his world didn't matter. They were just two people who'd found each other against all odds. The wedding was perfect. Julia looked radiant in a dress that was elegant without being stuffy. The garden ceremony was everything she dreamed of. Wildflowers, string lights, intimate and personal. Lorenzo walked his sister down the aisle with tears in his eyes. The giant who scared everyone was openly crying at his baby sister's wedding. Zara watched from the back, her heart full. After the ceremony, during the reception, Lorenzo found her. "Dance with me," he said. "I'm working." "Dance with me anyway." He led her to the dance floor. The size difference was comical. Her head barely reached his chest, and he had to bend down significantly. But somehow, it worked. "Thank you," Lorenzo said softly, "for giving Julia her perfect day, for seeing what she needed instead of what I thought she needed. That's my job." "No, your job was planning a wedding. What you did was much more than that. You brought joy to my sister. You brought light to my family. You brought hope to me." Zara looked up at him. "Lorenzo, I love you," he said simply. "I know it's fast. I know we're complicated. But I'm in love with you, Zara Williams, and I need you to know that." "I love you too," she whispered. "Even though you're a pain in my ass and you hover too much, and you're so big I have to climb you like a tree just to kiss you properly." He laughed and lifted her off her feet, bringing her up to his level. "Better? Much better." He kissed her in the middle of the dance floor, holding her like she weighed nothing, like she was the most precious thing in his world. People stared. Let them. The giant and the tiny woman who wasn't afraid of him. The monster and the woman who saw the man beneath. They'd figure out the rest, the complications and the size difference and the dangerous world he lived in. But for now, they had this moment, this love, this impossible, improbable, perfect thing they'd built together. The man who scared away 17 women just fell in love with the one woman who stayed. She chose him, all of him, the good and the dark, the gentle and the dangerous. He lifts her like she weighs nothing, holds her like she's precious, loves her like she's the only thing that matters. The size difference that everyone said was impossible, they made it work because love doesn't measure in inches or pounds, it measures in choice. This is the story everyone said couldn't work, and they're proving them all wrong. How do you feel right now? Like if you're obsessed with this couple, share this beautiful love story. Subscribe for more impossible love stories. Zara moved into Lorenzo's penthouse 4 months after the wedding. It took adjustment, learning to share space with a man who was literally twice her size, whose clothes took up 3 times the closet space, who had to special order furniture because normal furniture didn't fit him. But they figured it out. Lorenzo had a step stool installed in the kitchen so Zara could reach the high cabinets he used without thinking. Zara bought a dozen pillows in various sizes so she could prop herself up to kiss him without getting a neck ache. They learned each other's rhythms. Morning coffee together before work, Lorenzo being careful about slamming doors because the sound was much louder for Zara closer to the ground. Zara leaving sticky notes on the mirror at her height because Lorenzo never looked down that far. The little things that made a life together. Zara's business exploded after the Moretti wedding. Turned out, planning a perfect wedding for a mafia family was the best advertising possible. She had more clients than she could handle. Lorenzo supported her completely, hired her additional staff, made sure she had the resources she needed. Never once suggested she should slow down or stop working. You're brilliant at what you do. Why would I want you to stop? They still argued, constantly, about everything. But now, the arguments ended with laughter and kisses instead of tension. His family accepted her, eventually, once they realized she wasn't going anywhere, that the tiny black woman who'd walked into Lorenzo's life wasn't intimidated by his size or his reputation or his world. "You're good for him," Julia said one day over lunch. "I've never seen my brother happy before. Not really, but you make him happy. I make him happy too. Even with the complications, the size difference and the danger and all of it? Especially with the complications," Zara said. "Anyone can love someone easy, but loving someone complicated, that's when you know it's real." One night, 6 months after the wedding, Lorenzo came home looking nervous. "What's wrong?" Zara asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong. I have something to ask you." He knelt down, all the way down, on both knees, so they were almost the same height, and he pulled out a ring. "Zara Williams, you walked into my life and changed everything. You weren't afraid of me. You called my bullshit. You saw past the size and the reputation and the darkness to the man underneath. You chose me when no one else would. You stayed when everyone said you'd run." His voice was shaking. The giant who commanded an empire was nervous asking her this question. "I know I'm not easy to love. I know our world is dangerous, and my size makes everything complicated. I know I'm too much in every possible way, but you love me anyway, and I love you more than I ever thought I could love anyone else." He opened the box. The ring inside was perfect, elegant but not too formal, exactly her style. "Marry me, Zara Williams. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice, that we can make this work despite the complications, that love is bigger than size differences and danger and everything else." Zara was crying. "You're asking me to marry you while kneeling on the floor. I wanted to be at your level, to look you in the eye, to ask you as equals, not with you looking up at me." Lorenzo Moretti, you beautiful, ridiculous man. Yes, yes, I'll marry you. He stood, pulled her up with him and kissed her, lifted her off her feet like always, because that's how they worked. The giant and the tiny woman who fit perfectly, despite or because of their differences. I love you, he said, my fierce, fearless, tiny wife-to-be. I love you too, Zara replied, my gentle, protective, oversized fiancé. They'd figure out the wedding later, the logistics of a ceremony where the groom was over a foot taller than the bride, the complications of merging their worlds completely. But for now, they had this moment, this love, this impossible, improbable, perfect thing they'd built together. They said no woman could handle Lorenzo Moretti's size. They were wrong. Zara Williams didn't just handle it, she embraced it, loved him for it and despite it and because of it. Because love doesn't measure in inches or pounds, it measures in choice. This is the story everyone said couldn't work, and it's the most beautiful love story we've ever told. Like if you're obsessed with this couple. Share this beautiful love story. Subscribe for more impossible love stories.